Hi. So, I'm really nervous. when I get, like, I'm from Austria, and some days ago I had the desire that my friends and my family from Austria would contact me because I felt lonely. Or I missed them, I just wanted to talk to them. And so in the following days, so many people contacted me that I felt overwhelmed by it, and I felt obligation to answer every email. And it made me feel really stressed out. And that happens to me often. So I'm often... when I start to feel the power of my possibilities to create, I get the feeling of obligation.
Well, that's why we're talking about step 4 today. Because when you're sporadic, in other words, when you're on your high-flying disc and you feel an inspiration and so you act on it, and then when you slip from that disc, then you don't have the power to carry on with what you have gathered up. Does that make sense to you? It's like getting on a really high-flying disc and realizing all that you are and focusing so clearly that you land that job that you've been looking for, and then you wake up ornery and realize you still have to go to work. And so that's what this step 4 is that we're talking about, the maintenance, the steady maintenance of that alignment, because the inspiration to ask for them came from a high-flying place. And then as they're responding to you, you've got to stay up to speed with that in order to have the timing and the inspiration to respond to them. So what you're talking about is just disc hopping. It's what buyer's remorse is. Get all tuned in. You realize who you are. You go out there and you involve yourself with something, and then you come off your high-flying disc and you say, oh, what have I done? It's the same sort of thing. So in some ways, and we will give this to all of you, this conversation, you've come with us and you've slipped from it, and you've come with us and you've slipped from it, and you've come with us and you've slipped from it, and you've come with us and you've slipped from it, and you've come with us and you've slipped from it. But for the most part, you are in a different vibrational place than you were when you came in the room. So your world, you are about to experience a sort of paradigm shift, because your point of attraction is different now than it was. We would like to say that once you get 30 days or more of this more consistent alignment, it took Esther nearly 2 weeks to get there and know that she could stay there through most of the day. And even now, she doesn't stay there all day every day, but she is predominantly there, and that's something that is new. So as you're predominantly there, if we could have this conversation a month from now, or 2 months from now, or 3 months from now, or 4 months from now, once you've been there and stayed there and been there and stayed there and been there and stayed there, everything about this conversation would feel different to you. And that statement would not come up at all. Instead, you would say, I sort of reached for something that was a little unnatural to me, but I found it, and then I must have been really tuned in, because the evidence of it just avalanched into my experience, and along with the avalanche of evidence came renewed power and clarity to deal with what was avalanching in. Sort of like our friend earlier talking about her business. She's got this creative business going, and now she has to do the necessary part of it. People say to us, I've written a book, I've written a wonderful book, and now how do I get it marketed? How do I get it published? How do I get people to find it? And we say, write another book. They say, no, you misunderstood. I already wrote the book. I wrote the book is done. Now I want to market it. What should I do? And we say, you've got to get those creative juices flowing. So write another book. That keeps the creative juices flowing. No, but I already wrote the book. I don't want to write another book. I already wrote the book. I want to get the creative juices flowing. Then say, well, write a book about getting your book published. Write a book about being on the high-flying disc. Acknowledge to yourself the processes that get you there and keep you there. Play by trial and error. Think about that person and see where you end up on the emotional discs. That person always makes me feel ornery when I think about that person. Well, then You've trained yourself into a vibrational level relative to that person, and every time you think about that person, so you either got to not think about that person ever again, or you got to think about that person differently if you want to be on the high flying disc. Are you hearing what we're getting at? But how many of you just let whatever the subject is assign you to an emotional level and just accept it as that's the way that it is? Well, that's not living step 4 life.
I have another question, which is kind of related to the first one. Is why does it feel sometimes so hard to choose of all the possibilities?
Because there's not enough momentum going. You haven't focused enough to get enough momentum going. If it's hard to choose, there's not enough momentum going, and it just doesn't matter. Choose anything, and the contrast will parlay it into something more. When the momentum is really going, there's no question in your mind. You don't say, you say, I'm doing this and I don't care what anybody thinks. Yeah.
Thanks.
Really good.